Hi everybody, this is Peter doing BritJet's PSX tips, the Aerowinks 747 desktop simulation. These videos are for PSX use only, of course, please. Today I'm going to talk about go-arounds. I'll do two videos. This is the normal procedures. The next one will be other aspects of the go-around, including some faults that can occur or unusual circumstances. We need a diagram of what we're going to do, so I found this one very simple. Running through it, basically we're going to at some stage decide we're going to go around. Lots of reasons for a go around. One I might mention is that you might not have the aircraft stable at 1,000 feet. Professional crews will check this, and there are strict criteria for it. Basically you've got to be within about 10 knots of the correct speed and correcting. You've got to have about the right thrust on. You've got to have your landing flaps set, be on the approach within about 1 dot, and have your checklist completed. If you can't do all those things at 1,000 feet, then you would be bound by your operating procedures to carry out a go around. But enough of that. We decide we're going to go around. The call would be go around flap 20 for multi-crew. So flap would come up to 20 straight away, and you would press the toga buttons. Now, just a reminder of where the toga buttons are on this. There you go. 2 of them. You only have to press 1, and for our purposes today we're just going to press 1 button 1 time. That would be the normal procedure. If you do that, the aircraft will achieve a climb rate of 2,000, or try to achieve a climb rate of 2,000 feet a minute. If you press it twice, it will give you full thrust, and we'll see a little bit of this probably tomorrow. So that's the idea with the toga buttons. Right, coming back to our flight today, what we're going to do is an approach onto one of the Dubai runways. The aircraft's just coming down, as we can see here, towards about 1,500 feet above the ground. Now when it gets to 1,500 feet, it does a check of the autopilot systems. And if all 3 autopilots are working satisfactorily, then it will come up and give you a message that says land 3. If not, it'll give you land 2, or even no auto land if auto land is not available. So here comes 1,500 feet, and you can see we've got land 3, and rollout and flare is armed. If you do nothing else now, of course the aircraft will carry on and do a full auto land without any intervention from you. So that's that bit of the approach. We'll be coming to 1,000 feet and we do our stable check shortly, but I'm just going to pause the simulation there, save us a bit of time, and move on to a lower altitude. So how low can you go? Well, the toga mode is armed until 5 feet radio. It's only 5 feet above the runway. So for the purposes of an auto land, you can actually press the togas just as the wheels are about to touch. With regard to go-arounds at really low altitudes like that, you can actually go around on the runway if you want to, as long as you haven't selected reverse out. The only thing is, at that point of course you won't have toga mode available to you. So always think about this. If you land on a runway and realise you're going off the end because you haven't wired in your brakes or whatever, there is the option just to throw it back up into the air again, and we'll probably do a video on that at some stage. But what I'm going to do today is do a go around at 10 feet just to show that we can do it. The FMA is the important thing to watch here. It will go to thrust, toga, toga. The thrust bit, as I said earlier, will be giving you, or trying to give you, 2,000 feet a minute. And if you watch the upper ICAS when it happens, you'll see that although the go-around index is up there at 1.7 something or other, you will get less than that, because that is all the aircraft needs to do. A full thrust toga would actually be quite alarming and make the aircraft difficult to manage, so there's no need for it, but it is there, and it is available to you if you push the toga button again. Also, in a wind shear condition, the aircraft will automatically go up to toga thrust to full thrust if it can't achieve 2,000 feet a minute. So you've got lots of protection built in there. So we're going to do the go around, and we're going to do it in accordance with the diagram like this. Press the togas, the autopilot will take us up. At 400 feet we'll engage a lateral mode, which today will be LNAV, and then as we approach acceleration altitude we're going to do some other stuff, and I'll come on to that in a moment. Right, so here comes the go around. watch the FMAs and watch the thrust coming up. While it's doing that, of course, what it didn't say on the diagram there was bring the gear up, which I'm also going to do. Do the flaps before the gear, otherwise you're going to get a config warning. Right, here we come.
100. 50. 30. 20. 10.
Right, there goes Toga. I call go around flaps 20. My helpful co-pilot gives me 20 flap, and positive rate selects the gear up. You see the speed drops a bit here, not to worry about that. Away we go. Look at the FMA, I'm waiting for 400 feet, there it is. I select LNAV, that's my lateral mode, and off I go. You'll see the pitch attitude at the moment, if I just freeze it for a moment, is quite high. Now, go around pitch attitudes it's really important to monitor those. A low weight aircraft like this would have a lot of performance. It might get up to as high as nearly 20 degrees there, but typically you should be looking for about no higher than 17 degrees. When you're doing it yourself manually, you pitch up to about 15 and then follow the flight director. So we're on our way. The aircraft is now climbing at the speed that you had when the Toga was engaged. It won't let the speed get too low. If you were to increase the speed here dramatically, either because you're a bit slow pulling the aircraft up on a go-around or for any other reason, you can actually have the aircraft accelerate to plus 25 on the VREF speed, and that's no problem at all. We'll talk about that in the next video. So away you go. Now the next thing would be what happens at 1,000 feet above the airfield. Typically, not always, but today we have an acceleration height, as it's called here, of 1,000 feet up. Most people will call this an acceleration altitude, an AA, and it might well be written down somewhere on a pad in the flight deck. When you get to AA, you start to accelerate. The way to do it is to select flight level change and then press speed and then wind the speed up, typically to about 190 knots, which will enable you to retract the flaps to 5 at most weights. There is the option also of selecting VNAV there instead of flight level change, according to Boeing. If you do that, you've got to be very careful that you've got the right altitude set in for your go-around. My recommendation would be to use flight level change. So that's going to be the next thing that happens here, and I'm going to run it at half speed on the PSX simulation to give me a little bit of chance to talk. So off we go. Get rid of the diagram. We're looking for 1,100 feet, which would be 1,000 feet above the airfield. There it comes now. I go flitch. I press the speed button, but it won't light up. Don't worry about that. I'll explain that tomorrow or next video, and wind at 190 knots. There you go. The aircraft will now slowly pitch down and start to accelerate. It's actually captured the altitude at the moment. That's fine. It will do that in Toga. If you had a higher missed approach, then obviously it will keep climbing. And as it accelerates through the 10 bug, go to flap 10. It now goes up towards your 5. Your 190 knot bug, which as you can see is conveniently parked just above the 5, and then you retract the flaps up to the 5 setting. I'll just run it at normal speed now. As you get up to the 5 bug, then we'll retract the flaps to 5. There you go. So here we are, we're sorted. The aircraft's going off on its magenta line for the missed approach. Auto throttle's engaged, altitude's captured. What you'd do now probably is think about what you're going to do next, which if you're going to do another approach, leave the flaps at 5. If you're going to divert elsewhere, then you would actually have retracted the flaps all the way to up. The only other thing to do really is the after takeoff checks. You see the ICAS at the top there is set to GA, go around. That's fine, you can leave it there, and next video we'll see that there are other options on that. So that's the normal procedures for a go around. Next video on what can possibly go wrong. Thanks for joining in.